여러분 안녕하십니까, 돌돌콩입니다. 다들 잘 지내셨나요? 올 겨울에 캘리포니아에 그 윈터 스톰이 조금 세게 와가지고 저희도 집에 되게 큰 나무들을 많이 잃었어요. 또 부서진 것들을 고치면서 그렇게 1월, 2월을 보내고 3월을 맞이하고 있습니다. 오늘은 왜 우리가 독서를 해야 하는가, 이 영상 매체가 쏟아지는 이 시대에서도 왜 독서라는 행위는 다른 걸로 대체될 수 없는가에 관한 대화를 아주 스페셜한 분과 나눴고, 바로 메리언 울프 교수님이신데요. 제가 제 채널에서도 다시 책으로 라는 책을 아주 많이 소개를 했었습니다.
라는 책이고요.
진짜 좋습니다.
네네네.
최근에 읽었던 책입니다.
메리언 울프 교수님에 대해서 잠깐 소개를 해드리면, 제가 앞서 말씀드린 것처럼 다시 책으로, 요게 원제가 Reader Come Home이거든요. 그 책의 저자이기도 하시고, 하버드 대학교에서 박사학위를 하시던 시절에 이제 인지과학, 그 다음에 책 읽는 뇌, 그 다음에 난독에 관한 연구를 활발하게 하기 시작하셨고요. 또 이 교수님의 이력에서 굉장히 흥미로운 지점은 그 학부와 석사를 영문학을 하셨어요. 그래서 박사님과 이야기를 나누다 보면 독서의 스펙트럼 또한 굉장히 넓다는 것을 쉽게 느낄 수 있습니다. 독서하는데 우리는 왜 독서를 해야 하는가? 독서를 하면서 우리가 얻을 수 있는 것은 무엇인가? 이런 질문에 대해서 끊임없이 고민해 오시고 오랜 시간 연구해 오신 분이세요. 그래서 스마트폰 좀 내려놓고 다시 한번 책을 좀 열심히 읽어보고 싶다. 책을 읽고는 싶은데 왜 이렇게 글자가 예전이랑 다르게 눈에 안 들어오지? 하시는 분들이 계시다면 오늘의 이 대화를 굉장히 흥미롭게 보실 수 있지 않을까 생각합니다. 여러분들께 도움이 되었으면 좋겠습니다.
Dr. Wolf!
Hello.
Hi! How are you?
Oh, it's a good day. I was trapped for a couple days, but now the sun is out and we're all just appreciative. But it is the case, and you're a scientist and you know that these are all warning signs about our unacceptable relationship to the earth.
It's been really bad up here too. I'm around the San Jose area and then we didn't have power for like 6 days. 2 weeks ago.
I have to do one quick thing if you don't mind. I'll be right back. Okay, now I'm fine.
Oh yeah, tea! Cheers! I looked the painting behind you. Do you have any stories about that? Is that like special piece for you?
Of course I do.
Yeah.
It's by an LA artist named Ben Wolf Noam, and he's my son. Well, I need you to know, Sonny, that my works, the 2 major books for the public, have been translated in Korea. The first book was called Proust and the Squid, the story.
This is a Korean version of that. I had that.
He has now Reader Come Home, The Reading Brain in Digital World. I don't know if you've read that.
I mean, so there's an all index. Of course, like I love this book.
I will say that my first and only trip to Korea, they were having summer camps. They were doing all these things to detox their children. And so part of my work was to, of course, be an apologist for reading. But the other part was they recognized ahead of most people the deleterious, the negative effects of digital culture on their young. And I hoped this last book, Reader Come Home, The Reading Brain in a Digital World, I hoped it wasn't for Korea, it was for the world.
Yes.
It was for us to look carefully at what reading gives us. And Korea seems to me a society which recognizes that reading gives not just the gift of an experience that is entertaining or an experience that informs and educates. Both of those are true. But I think Korea has recognized in itself a desire, an almost unspoken desire, to go beyond their own competitive desire for innovation. That's really why I recorded Lee Min-ho's last lines on Legend of the Blue Sea, because I could just feel this longing for not losing what is essential, what is good, what is just, what is true, what is beautiful. It keeps us, you see, reading fiction, and I'll speak of it in two ways, as a neuroscientist and as a reader myself. As a neuroscientist, if you look at those people who read fiction, you see their white matter integrity different. It's different. They are making connections that aren't going to be made if you aren't accustomed to leaving yourself and entering a piece of consciousness of another person. A Nobel Prize-winning author once said, reading is as close as we can get to telepathy.
Oh.
Think of that. Because we are so entering the consciousness of others. They are so important because they help you understand a completely different person.
So quick question about that. So that sense of being immersed, is that different from what we feel when we watch other media, like when we watch videos, when we watch movies?
The beauty of art is that it has many ways to enter the consciousness of human beings. And I love music for the same reason that I love my son's art, for the same reason I love film, which is really, it requires more. But books have a very special, if you will, additional contribution. They allow at its best, they allow a focusing of attention that stops, that pauses, that gives you a chance to immerse in a way that film, which is, it keeps going. Film has wonderful aspects and I love it. But reading is always the place where I am allowed to go to what I call the reading sanctuary, where my immersion, like what Proust said, and that's why I named the first book Proust in the Squid. Proust said that at the heart of reading, we go beyond the truth of the author to discover our own. That takes time. That takes a very special, the poet William Stafford said, a quality of attention has been given you. Books, at their best and at our reading best, give us a quality of attention that allows us to stop, pause, linger with our own insights. I want to say very, very clearly that digital screen reading has a absolute fantastic advantage and a downside. Just as you, as a biostatistician, are always looking at both sides, I must look at both sides of the reading brain in digital versus print books. The digital screen hastens you along. You have a penchant, a desire to get to the end. When you read in eye movement research, you're going like this to get to the bottom. You are getting that information. That's its strength. But you are not giving the quality of attention that immersion in print has as its affordance. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't read print superficially. They do. That doesn't mean that you can't do digital reading deeply, because we can. But the affordance, what is the mindset that we have when we are on the screen, is to get the information. And we're actually very vulnerable because there's so much information out there.
What aspects of digital reading makes that reading experience a little bit superficial compared to paper reading?
My articles for The Guardian are all about skimming as the new norm. And what happens is when you're bombarded with information, your defense is to read fast and get it done. So that changes how you read. You read more superficially. And the screen is perfect because you can skim it fast and it keeps going. There's no physicality that gives you even a concreteness to the thing. it is by nature of its design evanescent. It's hastening you along. It's speeding you up. If you will, a dopamine spurt.
Yeah.
You're getting it done.
Right.
You've done your work and you're getting it. What goes missing is this attention to detail, to your own insights. Reader Come Home gives a lot of information about plasticity. What that means is that this reading brain never existed genetically. It is built. And so it means it's going to reflect the circuit. Right now, over the last 20 years, the medium changes the circuit. You may begin with a great basic circuit, but print allows you to build the cognitive patience to build empathy, critical analysis, inference, analogy, insights, contemplative function. You may build that, but if you are on the screen all day long and not disciplining yourself, you are going to skip the attention to those more time-consuming, sophisticated processes.
I shared my idea, my experience of leading this book challenge group for the last 2 years. So there are a lot of Korean people who want to recover their literacy that has been lost by all this digital media. My motivation, initial motivation was exactly like this. When I do my scientific research, whenever I read academic paper, I started reading online on screen, right? And then I didn't print it out from some point. I was finding myself kind of skim through and not understanding it deeply. So that was a big problem for me. So I have to really do the deep reading, but I felt like I lost that ability somehow. So my question is, 2 questions here. A, how do you read your academic paper? Do you print it out? For people like me who didn't necessarily hate reading, I used to love reading, but I've been losing it gradually by doing more digital reading and then exposing myself to short form contents or just contents for entertainment, for example. I cannot digest the contents as well as I used to do like 10 years ago. What kind of effort, specific effort can we make to recover that?
I'm so glad that'll be the end of our conversation. And it's the best possible end because I have such hopefulness for people. And what I would say to you is that whatever dominates you changes how you read. The more we read on the screen, the more that's our dominant mode that we take over. It bleeds into how we read books. So I was faced with the same issue that you were. But you've asked me 2 questions. One is, what do I do with my academic papers? I am like everybody else. I look at them digitally, see what's going on, and then whatever I know is most important, I print it out. Not only do I print it out, I have notebooks in which I take the notes that I put in the margins and I force myself to say, okay, this is what they said. What do I believe? What does that make me think? And so I have almost like a threefold or 3-step process. Digital, see what's out there, make sure I know what I should be reading, and then when I see something that's important to me theoretically, I print it out, and then I write, because the motoric aspect is better for consolidation and memory. I write out my insights. So so before I ever write a paper, I have gone through 3 forms of comprehension: shallow one, a deeper read, and then a consolidation through my own thinking. Now, how do we get it back? I was no longer the reader I was. Just Sunny, as you have said, I have a funny expression. I bookend my days consciously and in a disciplined way. And by that I mean, if I would ever show you my kitchen table, it has piles of books. And so for 20 minutes I meditate. for the next 20 minutes, I read in as deep a way as I can, and I read material that gives me the realization that we are all together. And please always, think of other and not just yourself. And that then actually centers me, so that when I go to work or I go on the computer or I talk to people like you, that I try my best. I can try my best, and we all have to have different things. Tolstoy said, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to do what's in front of you. Well, if I bookend my day, I have a better shot at doing whatever's in front of me to do.
If you can recommend any book that you liked for Korean readers, that would be great. And then last thing will be if you have any message that you want to share with Korean readers and Korean fans of yours, please.
I truly loved the work Gilead and Home by Marilyn Robinson, East of Eden by John Steinbeck, Gisgen's Resistors, and World and Town. All of these are books that touched me deeply and made me want to be a better person and want to help the world be better. These are books that are about advancing humanity, and each of us have, in our daily lives. Here, Sonny, you're a researcher. I'm a researcher, and yet our work, our duty, if you will, our obligation to our profession has an amazing ability to touch other people. How wonderful is that? That is such a gift. So I'm so glad you're doing this blog. I think this is fabulous. And in terms of my readers, I can't thank you enough. Being an author is sometimes very lonely, and you do not know necessarily the reaction of the reader. And in my particular area, where some people are even afraid of neuroscience or afraid of the brain, my hope was to give you a chance to appreciate the beauty of your own brain, mind, and heart, and how they are always connected. And that from my perspective as an author, to think that some of you have written reviews that said, you have come home, you have given me a truly lifelong gift.
Aww.
At the end of our lives, we always want, if possible, to have touched a few hearts, a few minds, a few souls.
Yeah.
And those reviews make me think it's a life worth living to have done that.
Oh,
So
that's
thank you.
beautiful. Yeah. Let me send this to you after. 감사합니다.